fresh from receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo alongside the IPCC, Academy Award winner, best-selling author, former Vice President, Senator, and Congressman from the United States of America, and climate change's single most effective messenger to the world, I present to you Al Gore.
I am not an official of the United States, and I am not bound by the diplomatic niceties. So, I am going to speak an inconvenient truth. My own country, the United States, is principally responsible for obstructing progress here in Bali. We all know that. We all know that. But my country is not the only one that can take steps to ensure that we move forward from Bali with progress and with hope. Those of you who applauded when I spoke openly about the diplomatic truth here have a choice to make. You can do one of two things here. You can feel anger and frustration and direct it at the United States of America. Or you can make a second choice. You can decide to move forward and do all of the difficult work that needs to be done and save a large open blank space in your document and put a footnote by it. And when you look at the footnote, write the description of the footnote. This document is incomplete, but we are going to move forward anyway on the hope, and I'm going to describe for you why I think you can also have the realistic expectation that that blank will be filled in. This is the beginning of a process designed to culminate in Copenhagen 2 years from now. Over the next 2 years, the United States is going to be somewhere it is not now. You must anticipate that. Targets must be a part of the treaty that is adopted in Copenhagen. And the treaty, by the way, should not only be adopted in 2009, I urge you in this mandate to move the target for full implementation of this treaty to a point 2 years sooner than presently contemplated. Let's have it take effect fully in 2010 and not 2012. We can't afford to wait another 5 years in order to replace the provisions of the Kyoto Protocol. So we must leave here with a strong mandate. This is not the time for business as usual. Somehow we have to summon, and each of you must summon, a sense of urgency here in Bali. These are not political problems, they are moral imperatives. But our capacity to strip away the disguise and see them for what they really are, and then find the basis to act together to successfully address them, is what is missing. The greatest opportunity inherent in this climate crisis is not only to quickly deploy the new technologies that will facilitate sustainable development, to create the new jobs, and to lift standards of living. The greatest opportunity is that in rising to meet the climate crisis, we in our generation will find the moral authority and capacity for long-term vision to get our act together in this world and take on these other crises, not political problems, and solve them. We are one people on one planet. We have one future, one destiny. We must pursue it together, and we can. The great Spanish poet from Sevilla, Antonio Machado, wrote, "Pathwalker, there is no path. You must make the path as you walk." There is no path from Bali to Copenhagen unless you make it. It's impossible, given the positions of the powerful countries, including my own, and the instructions from which they are not going to depart. But you can make a new path. You can make a path that goes around that blank spot, and you can go forward. There are two paths you can choose. They lead to two different futures. Not too long from now, when our children assess what you did here in Bali, what we in our generation did here in this world, as they look backward at 2007, they will ask one of two questions. I don't know which one they'll ask. I know which one I prefer they ask, but trust me, they will ask one of these two questions. They'll look back, and either they will ask, "What were you thinking? Didn't you hear the IPCC 4 times unanimously warning the world to act? Didn't you see the glaciers melting? Didn't you see the North Polar ice cap disappearing? Didn't you see the deserts growing and the droughts deepening and the crops drying up? Didn't you see the sea level rising? Didn't you see the floods? Didn't you pay attention to what was going on? Didn't you care? What were you thinking?" Or they will ask a second question, one that I much prefer them to ask. I want them to look back on this time and ask, how did you find the moral courage to successfully address a crisis that so many said was impossible to address? How were you able to start the process that unleashed the moral imagination of humankind to see ourselves as a single global civilization? And when they ask that question, I want you to tell them that you saw it as a privilege to be alive at a moment when a relatively small group of people could control the destiny of all generations to come. Instead of shaking our heads at the difficulty of this task and saying, "Woe is us, this is impossible, how can we do this? We're so mad at the ones that are making it harder," we ought to feel a sense of joy that we have work that is worth doing, that is so important to the future of all humankind. We ought to feel a sense of exhilaration that we are the people alive at a moment in history when we can make all the difference. That's who you are. You have everything you need. We have everything we need, save perhaps political will. But political will is a renewable resource. Thank you very much.